Good morning. Today is Tuesday, July 6th, and on the Hebrew calendar, Chaf Vav Tammuz, the 26th of Tammuz. We are studying the entire Talmud, one page, one line at a time, presently studying the Shabbas, chapter 6, and we're in the ballpark of 61a and 61b. Yesterday, our discussion was dominated primarily by figuring out which side, which shoe is put on first. Does the Torah have anything to say about that? And so it turns out, like many matters, we have two options, two perspectives, or at least two options. Rabbi Yochanan, who is the way this conversation is initially introduced, seems to always want to prioritize the left side. We're introduced to a brisa where there is a prioritization of the right side, and which led us to a question of halachic practice. There are those Amoraim that say, do whichever way you like, or something to that effect. And there are others that say that there's a extra Yiras Shamayim formula to honor both perspectives, both opinions, by placing the shoe on your right foot, then placing the shoe on your left foot, tying it, and then tying the right shoe. And we found that to be represented in the code of Jewish law, and with greater elaboration in the Shulchan Aruch, and then even more so in the Shulchan Aruch Harav, describing how generally we would always, or one always could or should, ideally prioritize the right over the left, and that would apply when placing on a sleeve, putting on your jacket or your shirt, you put the right hand first, and so on and so forth. Rebbe asked towards the end of the year, what about socks? And I believe we saw that socks as well. We had a similar suggestion. Before we open the Gemara and move on from the subject of shoes to the subject of wearing tefillin on Shabbos, and our main concern is not can you wear tefillin on Shabbos, although that is an issue. The main issue is it considered carrying in a way that is prohibited on Shabbos? We'll see all of that in a moment. I want to just read to you again in the back of the Sifta. We have a section which collects a lot of halachic discussion, and he explains that in the Kabbalistic writings of the Arizal, in Shara Kavanot, it says that when a person puts on their clothing, he should actually put the whole garment on his right side. And I don't know if it means putting it on or holding it with his right, and then put the right side on your right side. Then you can engage the left side of your body again with sleeves. I guess we could imagine that you put in your right hand and then your left hand. And then he writes that you should actually have a kavanah. I don't know if a lot of people have this kavanah, but it's interesting. He says you should have it in mind, because everything in its source comes from chesed, comes from yamin. Kabbalistically, the right represents kindness and chesed, and even the things that come to the left side, to small, to gevura, to severity, to din, start out from chesed. These words are actually quoted in some of the halachic works, such as the Magen Avraham. And he writes, such as the Magen Avraham. Others write that what do you do if you by mistake put your left side on and you didn't yet put on your right side? Well, if we're going to follow Rabbi Yochanan's Hakpada, you might be in trouble. But it's brought in a sefer called Oz Nidabru, that you should actually take off the left side and then start over placing on the right hand side. I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just telling you what is brought in some of the holy svarim. A sefer called Ber Moshe writes, and this is the big question: if you're a left-handed, what do you do? So we know that when it comes to tefillin, you swap. We know that when one is left-handed, there are many left-handed people who do everything in the reverse, treating their left as their right and the right as their left. In the Ber Moshe, here it's quoted that even a left-handed person should prioritize placing the garment on his true right, the universal right, being that this has to do with a Kabbalistic meditation about the idea of left versus right. And that's one perspective. I'm going to ask Jean-Bert, you're left-handed, correct? When you put on your clothing, or what is the advice in the Chabad tradition, a left-handed person, do they also put on all clothing on their right side, or do they put it on their right side, which is their left side? So Rabbi Sholmer is telling us that he is mechaven to this teaching as well when it comes to putting on clothing. He puts on the right side, he believes. But when you wash your hands for Netilas Yadayim, you wash your left hand first. But when it comes to other Jewish practices, all right, interesting.
I actually reverse Netilas Yadayim. That's one thing I've always done, like the rest of the.
This is not a halacha l'maisa class, so I'm not going to advise you to change any of your practices based on this. This is more to get a survey of the discussion. We can do research for halacha l'maisa, but that would be beyond the scope of this year. I'm happy to help you out. Dr. Ham.
Two quick questions. One, in passing, you said that you could put on tefillin on Shabbos, but you can't carry.
No, I said there's two questions.
Okay.
Are you allowed to wear tefillin?
Is it muktzah?
So that's going to be our next discussion. Not muktzah, but it'll be relevant to our next discussion.
Okay. Next,
Right,
if you're a Levi, washing Kohanim.
Okay.
Some Kohanim, like the Kudan family, put out one hand to show you, we wash that hand first and then go to the others. A lot of people just put two hands out in front of the Levi. And the Levi, sometimes, depending on the Levi or the mood of the Levi, pours it sort of together and whatever. Is there any halacha from the point of view of being the washer of what is to be done? I know you're not a Levi, so.
Yeah, so I'm going to confess a little bit of ignorance. I don't recall an exact discussion or citation on the matter. I suspect that you would be washing the right first, as is typically the formula for washing hands. I have a feeling people that put out both hands come from big shuls, and if they don't really go fast, they won't have a chance to get on time for duchening. So that would be an interesting study for someone that wants to. Anyway, that's just a theory, but I'd be curious to see if there's some consistency with that theory.
I guess the simple thing is, when in doubt, do the right.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. Always
Do what's right.
What's right.
The Rebbe, or the I think he's a Rebbe of Rimanov in his works, in his letters, it says. Oh, interesting. All right, it's brought in Hasidic Svarim and in Kabbalistic Svarim that there should be an extreme concern to wear always that the right part of your garment overlaps over the left side of your garment. And so much so that Chabad, the kapota, right, the Hasidic frock, not only Chabad, but or a bekesher that you see, the Hasidic coats, are always designed opposite of the conventional male style to allow the right to be over the left. If I'm not mistaken, well, I can tell you this much. Men's shirts, for example, are always the left side over the right side.
Right.
Ladies' clothing, I believe, is the reverse.
Yes.
And if you look carefully, next time you go to Borough Park or to Williamsburg or to Antwerpen or anywhere else, or Montreal, or what's the place called in Montreal where there's a lot of Hasidic?
Outremont.
If you go to Outremont, you'll take a look. I'm not certain, but I believe, you'll notice that the shirts are designed in women's fashion. And you might be very surprised. Why are these Hasidim wearing Beged Isha? And so I'm here to inform you that based on what I'm reading here and based on Hasidic and Kabbalistic teaching, you always want to have the left side over the right side, further prioritizing the right side over the left side. You have Chabadniks, and I believe maybe the Rebbe even did this before the Rebbe was Rebbe and he was wearing kapata, and you'll find Chabadniks that have buttons added to allow them to put the right over the left of a conventional suit. And you'll also see, especially if you go to the yeshiva, where they're not at all concerned about fashion statements and what anyone else is thinking, you'll notice some of the young students have their buttons buttoned in a very strange and inverted manner. And that's based on this idea of having the right side over the left side, which is apparently a pretty prevalent teaching in the Hasidic world. This is something that is actually across different Hasidic groups and dynasties, even Chabad, although sometimes people differentiate between Chabad and other groups. And so that's an interesting matter that's actually born in its genesis from our Gemara and the sense of why the prioritization of the right over the left, having to do with Chesed and Gvura, which is further elaborated in the works of the Arizal and Shar Kavanis, and then many great Hasidic works of the last 300 years. So I bet you weren't expecting that, Ala Boker, but there you have it. And now we can jump back into our Gemara.
Okay, one thing, if you notice the kittles are always done backwards, women.
Oh, very good. So a kittel, which is custom designed for this practice, and most likely the odds are, who's making your kittel? You can imagine some Hasidic guy in Israel making them. And so they're designed as well, indeed, in a way of right over left. And Shalom Neida, I wonder, because I know a lot of times people use a kittel as tachrichim, I wonder if that is the same design there. But I guess that's something that someone can do research in due time. Let's share the screen and continue through Shabbos. Here we go. We're going to start over in this final Brisa. Tan Rabbanan, we read this at the end of the class, but I think it's a good way to end off. Kishu noyel, noyel shel yamin. Upon putting on shoes, put on the right hand first, side first. Yachakach noyel shel small, and only afterwards the left. Kishu chayletz, when you remove your garments. So I know we discussed this in our preamble, and I quoted the Shulchan Aruch, but it's obviously the Shulchan Aruch took it from the Gemara and from the Braitot that are being quoted. Kishu chayletz, when you remove your clothing, chayletz shel small, v'achakach chayletz shel yamin. You take off the left side and then the right side. Rashi, v'zeu k'voidai shel yamin, because having the right side on longer ultimately is the honor of it. Kishu roichetz, when a person bathes, roichetz shel yamin v'achakach roichetz shel small. Bathe the right side and the left side. Kishu soch, when a person is applying ointment or what do we say it was? Mishkaot, hand sanitizer, not sanitizer, but whatever.
Shower gel.
Yeah. Small, so one should always do the right side first. Right, so Yitzi is going to be putting oil on his entire body. So then the head gets precedent because the head is the king of all the limbs. What does it mean that the head is the king of all the limbs? Any theories?
Well, we know the head is what controls, the brain is what controls everything.
So the brain controls the entire body, and it is the instructions of the brain that, or the desire of the brain to make a movement that causes the body to move. So that is very much, and we can imagine, picture that the head is the king over all the other organs, other limbs. The Ben Yehuda here says nearly, not because it is the highest part of the body, because then you would have said it's the highest. That a person's intellect, wisdom is in his head. Mark, I think this is what you're saying. And ultimately, it is the brain, the mind, that controls the entire body, and therefore it is the king of all the organs of the body. There you have it. We're now ready to move on to the next segment of our Gemara, based on our Mishnah, a discussion about the tefillin. As you may recall, our Mishnah gives a list of items that a man oughtn't to wear out on Shabbos. Now, what we've been saying about all the items on that list, these are all items that are not biblically prohibited, they are rabbinically prohibited. Chazal disallow it, although the Torah intuition, let's say, the Torah instinct might be and is that it is permissible. And the Chachamim said, still, you shouldn't do it due to certain concerns. Primarily, you might take it off, or it's not really a garment, it's not really linoi. So let us, and now I'll remind you again, remember we said, why do we talk about the animals before the human beings? And one of the answers we gave is because an animal, you are biblically instructed to prevent it from carrying stuff around, and the stuff that it's wearing, if it's not a garment, it's literally carrying. Whereas we explained, one of the answers was that with the humans, they are all items that are and the Raisa permissible. So let's see. One shouldn't wear tefillin on Shabbos. Shouldn't go out wearing tefillin. So the Gemara is going to have two different ways to understand which opinion is being expressed. And again, as I told you in the beginning, the question is, what are you allowed to wear tefillin? Are you supposed to wear tefillin on Shabbos? Let's take a look. Amar Rav Safra explained. Like Tema, Aliba de Man Damar Shabbos Lav Zman Tefillin Hu. The opinion that says you shouldn't wear tefillin outside. This is not only an expression of the opinion that says you aren't meant to wear tefillin on Shabbos. There is an opinion that says that you are allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos. Obviously, not the winning opinion in practice, because we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos. But there is a perspective in the Mishnaic realm that says that you could wear tefillin on Shabbos. So when our Mishnah says don't wear tefillin outside in the public domain on Shabbos, which opinion would this follow? Is this following the opinion that says you're not allowed to wear tefillin? And being that you're not allowed to wear tefillin, you can't wear them out? And he says, no. Even the opinion that says that you're allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos, and they would also tell you, la yetze, that you should not wear your tefillin in the public domain. Why not? Dilma asi la asuye b'rshus harabim. Because if you're wearing your tefillin, you may end up carrying them in the rshus harabim. Now, we're going to open another window here. And Erev inside the Kemabes. Let's look up the original argument, the Machlokes and its source. Erevin Sadekei. Was it Amud Beis? It wasn't. All right. This is Meseches Erevin. And Meseches Erevin is a Masechta mostly about Erev, which of course it relates to the part of Shabbos. It has to do with carry. It's a complex Masechta, and so we're not going to be doing the whole thing, but we're just going to look for that discussion about if you're allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos.
This was a case where they had to rescue them from a burning house or something, and
there are scenarios where everyone would agree you might be allowed to wear it, but let's see. I'm just looking for the citation about Shabbos being a Zman Tefillin. So bear with me a moment. Here we go. The Hacha, ignore the top part, there's Shabbos Zman Tefillin Kamiflim. The Machlokes that the Gemara is discussing is the Machlokes about if Shabbos is a time to wear tefillin. Why would you be or not allowed to wear tefillin? Tanakama Savar, again, I don't want to get into the whole intricacy of this Gemara here. Shabbos Zman Tefillin. Shabbos is a time that you're supposed to wear tefillin. Rabbi Gamliel Savar, Shabbos Lazman Tefillin, who Rabbi Gamliel says that Shabbos is not a time to wear tefillin. Again, it has to do with hold on. Dr. Hammer, I know I'm zooming through. I'm just looking for key words. But I don't know if you noticed something.
Kavana.
You saw Kavana? You saw that? Here, this is the citation we need to read. But before then, let's just zoom back just to show the doctor what we're going to get at when we go to the next session. The Machlokes, one proposed on the way to understand. The Machlokes is brought here in the Seches Erevin is that the question is mitzvah srichais kavana. Do mitzvahs need kavana? Tanakama summer lots is by kavana. The Tanakama says if you want to fulfill your obligation to do a mitzvah, there has to be kavana. Rabbi Gamliel says by kavana, a mitzvah can be fulfilled even without having kavana. So certainly, Dr. Hammer, you want to bookmark this, and we'll add it to the thesis all about kavana in Jewish practice. But now to our citation that I was searching for here. Uman Shabbos le Shabbos man tefillin. Is anybody of the opinion that you're meant to wear tefillin on Shabbos? Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya, the Brisa that discusses can you wear tefillin on Shabbos or not, reads the verse that's in one of the sections that discuss the tefillin that are printed in the tefillin. Okay, God forbid, not printed, handwritten in the tefillin. It says, "V'shamartes achu chazois lemayada Miyamim Yamima. You shall guard this statute L'mayada in its time Miyamim Yamima. Let's see the translation here. He says, in a season from year to year. That's the way Rabbi Steinsaltz translates it. When you say something is Yamim, Miyamim Yamima, so Yamim, the word Yamim teaches us V'leila is not evenings, not nights. It's Laila, Lav, Zman. And then when it says Mi Yamim, from among the days, some of the days, they're like Kol Yamim, Prat, the Shabbatot, the Yamim Tovim. So from this, like this verse, that's in the Torah talking about the filling. In Kadesh Lu. Here, the verse first that says, al yadcha, shall be a sign on your hand. And a reminder between your eyes. And so that the Torah will be in your lips. Because Hashem took us out with a strong arm. Next line, keep this mitzvah. And it's time, from the days that you should do it. Forget the translation here. And so, Rabbi Yossi Haglili says, Miyamim, there's a day that you shouldn't put on tefillin, and that is Shabbos. Rabbi Kiva says, no, you misunderstand this verse. You think this verse is talking about tefillin? No, you got to zoom out. What's the bigger picture? We're talking about remembering the exodus. And so this is a reference to Korban Pesach. And by the way, it makes sense because the word chukah is more associated with the tefillin than with the Korban Pesach than mitzvah tefillin. Rashi. It doesn't mean from day to day. It means from year to year. It means from time to time. Being that Rabbi Akiva says this verse is not a reference to tefillin, Shmamina, this Sfirale, Laila, the Shabbos, Zman tefillin hu. You're allowed to wear your tefillin at night and on Shabbos. Anyways, it continues. The point is, there's a discussion about if you could wear tefillin at night. Now that we know there are two opinions in the Mishnah about do you wear tefillin on Shabbos or not, when our Mishnah comes writing in and says, attention, don't wear your tefillin outside on Shabbos. Whose voice do you hear playing? Who is saying this? Team no tefillin on Shabbos or team tefillin on Shabbos? That's what our Gemara asks. And answers, everybody. Even the guy who says you can wear tefillin would also not want you to wear tefillin outside because there's two different issues. There's the question of are you allowed to wear tefillin? But there's another question. Even if you're allowed to wear it, are you allowed to put yourself in a situation you may come to carry? And so Rav Safra says this, don't wear tefillin. Outside even extends to those who say you should wear tefillin on Shabbos. Dr. Hammer, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
A couple of things. First of all, you're saying you can't carry it. Everybody agrees you can't carry it?
Everybody agrees that you cannot carry it in the public domain. You can't carry anything.
So, okay, so if somebody...
So it's not a moksa question now, it's a carrying question.
Okay, so if somebody, as I've seen, I remember a comment I made to somebody because I thought it was appropriate. Sometimes people who are not well educated about what's appropriate, they bring their talis and their tefillin on Shabbos because they haven't been in shul in a couple of years and they're together, okay? And they take out the tefillin, not to put it on, nobody's putting it on, to get to the talis and they leave it on the seat next to them. I've had that happen in our shul, okay? So, and I thought it was, quite frankly, I'm not that well educated either. I actually thought it was muktzah somehow. So I told the person we don't use it on Shabbos, and I remember the guy in the was he put it back. I knew nothing about carrying. I wasn't going into carrying. I just thought it was the right thing to. So that's one thing. What is the right thing to do? when a guy who doesn't know has tefillin, carried tefillin to shul, you're going to start telling him to leave it there or whatever. So that's one question. The other question is about Chol HaMoed in terms of tefillin, in terms of what we just said. And the last question, Ukshar Tamios al Yodecha, why does it say Yodcha and not Yodecha?
So let's back up. Question number 1. Someone has tefillin and they don't realize they shouldn't wear it. Is it muksa? So generally speaking, I believe we do treat tefillin as muksa, except when honoring its covet, if it's going to be disgraced or disrespected or damaged or in a fire, then there's a discussion about can and how can you save it. So I don't want to make a blanket statement, but generally speaking, they should not be handled. To me, I think that it's a beautiful thing when a Jew that, let's say, never comes to shul before, but they're growing in their Yiddishkeit to the point where they wear tefillin, and so they don't realize that they shouldn't wear tefillin on Shabbos. So the right thing is to do what you did, to tactfully let them know that we don't wear tefillin. And actually, it's a reminder to me, because this week, I helped a young man who's on a very slow and very steady journey in his Yiddishkeit, a beautiful neshama, and he finally, I shouldn't say finally, it's not like I was on his case, but he's a very meticulous and thought out person. And he's not going to just jump into a part of Jewish practice because someone else suggested it. And finally, recently, he started asking me that he thinks he's ready to buy a pair of tefillin. And Baruch Hashem, on Sunday, I was able to deliver him a brand new, beautiful Mehuder pair of tefillin. And so you remind me that I should remind him that he probably knows, but I shouldn't assume he knows, that we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos. So I'm glad you brought that up. He told me something really beautiful, actually, and then I have to get back to the other 2 questions. He told me, you know me, he said, I'm an intellectual. You know why I'm wearing tefillin? And by the way, his reason for wearing tefillin doesn't need to be your reason for wearing tefillin. But he says, to me, wearing tefillin isn't exactly rational like other things that I do. But I know that I need to connect to Hashem in a way that is also puts my reason aside. And so my putting on tefillin is my desire to connect to Hashem in a level that is pushing me out of my comfort zone, out of purely relating on an intellectual level and into a more spiritual and faith kind of connection. To hear those words from,
when you talk to him about the Para Aduma.
To me, to hear those words from him was extremely inspiring. So I told him, I want to disagree with you. There is reason and explanation and depth, but his reason left me very, very touched. And so that is that story. Now, back to question number 2 about carrying the tefillin. So the discussion of our Mishnah that talks about carrying tefillin is primarily discussing where there's no Eruv. And so therefore, you literally have a challenge or a question of carrying on Shabbos. Where that is discussed is not in our Gemara, it's in Gemara Eruvin. If I recall correctly, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, if I recall correctly, if the tefillin are going to be damaged, disgraced, debased, the thing to do would be to put on the tefillin and wear them into town, and then only take them off when you're within an Eruv in an honorable place. I believe that is the consensus of the Gemara that we were just squeezing through. But again, don't take this as halachic advice, but if I recall correctly, the Shulchan Aruch gives that as the suggestion. Question 3. I don't remember, Doctor. What was the 3rd question?
2 was Chol HaMoed. 3.
Oh, okay. So why don't you? So do you wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed or not? So I want to just give you the fast answer. It boils down to tefillin are called a sign, an ois, a sign of the relationship between the Jewish people and Hashem. There's a machlokes about the ois of Yontif. Yontif, we don't wear tefillin. Everyone agrees. Why? Because the holiday is a ois and a sign. And Shabbos is oisi, beini, right? Beinu beini oisi la'olam. So being that Shabbos is a sign to remind us of our connection to Hashem, we don't need another sign. Yontif is the same thing. The question about Chol HaMoed is, what is the sign? Is the sign abstaining from work, or is the sign the observance of the holiday? Those who say that the sign is not working, on Chol HaMoed, many people go to work, and therefore there is an instinct to wear, or a valid perspective that says to put on tefillin. Sephardic Jews, Hasidic Jews, I believe their psak is different. They say the ice is not working or not working. It's the full package of the holiday. There are certain Jews of Lithuanian extraction who follow the psak that says it's about work. And the pshara is, if they work, they put on tefillin. If they don't work, they don't put on tefillin. Others put on tefillin without a bracha. There's a lot of different variations. But you're right. You're correct to bring it up in that it's a similar reason why we don't wear it, why we might not wear it in Chol Hamoed, because of the sign, the ice of the tefillin between man and God. That was question number 2. And
Not yodcha, if you look at the.
So as you may recall from yesterday, there are different verses that describe the tefillin, and they occasionally vary on the way they write yodcha or yodecha. And one of the limudim from the fact that it says yodcha, not yodecha, is yad keha, the weaker hand. And so that might be a reason why it's the nikudas are surprising or not familiar, or at least don't reflect the exact nikud pronunciation of the way it is in the Shema. So again, there are 4 passages in the Torah that talk about tefillin: Shema, v'hoyim shemoya, kadesh li, and one other which I'm drawing a blank in the moment. So that's why the tefillin have 4 parshiot for those 4. Go ahead.
Why would yodcha be more the stronger hand than yodecha? I don't.
No. Yodcha.
Yeah.
Can be read in 2. Yad keha.
Oh, yet keha. Oh, okay.
Yad keha, yeah. Which means the weaker hand. It's
Right.
a limud that's brought.
Okay.
So again, let me just recap. I know it's not that hard, but it's just a little confusing. So again, Rav Safra says there are 2 opinions about tefillin on Shabbos, but even the opinion that says you wear tefillin on Shabbos, they would agree you shouldn't carry the tefillin out. You shouldn't wear the tefillin in the public domain. Dilma asi lasoye, maybe shakel lehume reishi, you'll take it off your head. Imba lifnais, umamtilu daramas. You might want to take it off if you have to go to the restroom or for another reason, or you need to pass gas when one should take off the word tefillin. And they could inadvertently end up carrying their tefillin in a manner that is not permissible on Shabbos. And so to avoid the whole complication, the Chazal made exera not to wear tefillin on Shabbos. This is how Rav Safra explains it in this part of the Gemara. There's another way to read it, and that's going to be the next. Ika demasni la seifa. There are others who read or apply his teaching to the second part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, "V'im yatsa," if a person ends up wearing any of the items that are on the don't wear list, einoi chayiv chatas. The Mishnah says that you're not culpable, you're not liable to bring a chatas offering, a sin offering. What does that imply? Well, if you don't have to bring a sin offering, it means that it is not a biblical prohibition. Here's the Mishnah. No, here's the Mishnah. Right, that's the spiked sandal, not with one shoe, and not with the tefillin. The end says, if you made a mistake, you transgressed, you didn't observe this Mishnah perfectly, you do not need to bring a sin offering, which means you did not transgress a biblical prohibition. So others say that when Rav Safra says that this teaching is according to all opinions about tefillin wearing, it's the sefer. Let's see how we read that. If you transgressed and you wore tefillin outside, you don't have to bring a sin offering. Amar Rav Safra commented and it said, not only the opinion that says that you're supposed to wear tefillin on Shabbos, and being that you're supposed to wear tefillin on Shabbos, obviously you're not carrying tefillin. It's a garment that is appropriate. Even the more extreme opinion, which is actually the prevailing opinion, that says you're not allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos. Even they would agree, even the opinion that says you're not allowed to wear tefillin, they would also agree that if you ended up wearing tefillin, you did not do a biblical prohibition. My timer. Why are they not in sin? Why are they not biblically transgressing? Because derech malbush avida. Ultimately, tefillin is worn in a manner that can be described as a malbush, as a type of garment. Donning, phylacteries, is performed in a manner of wearing a garment or ornament. Although one may not use tefillin on Shabbos, there is not a Torah prohibition against moving them, and therefore they're not muksa, and therefore you could wear it. Biblically.
Well, Moksha is only Rabbanan, right? And I don't think there's ever.
We're talking about tiltal, carrying. That's not allowed, but it's not considered tiltal if it's being worn in the manner of how a person wears a garment of clothing. Shouldn't do it, but it's not a biblical problem. This concludes our section, our unit on tefillin and how you shouldn't wear tefillin on Shabbos. Let's actually do this. This is not the Shulchan Aruch that I was thinking of, but let's read this actually. Fast, or briefly I should say. If you go out on Shabbos with something that's not an ornament, and it's not worn in a manner of clothing, and he carries it out in a conventional manner, chayiv. He's chayiv. He's desecrated Shabbos. A garment that's loose and might fall off. Also, you shouldn't wear it. But you still have not transgressed Shabbos. Hilka. Again, this is going to be the next part of the Mishnah. Certain items are considered carrying, but you also shouldn't wear other items, which you're potter. This is what I wanted to show you. Potter, shehem derech malbush, because this is like a clothing. You similarly should not wear tefillin. You have to cover up your tefillin when you go into the facilities. Okay, period. Anyways, that's where the Shulchan Aruch says. You shouldn't wear tefillin, but if you went outside, you did not do a biblical prohibition. And that is that. We're now up to our next and very favorite discussion, which is the kameya. Kameya being the amulet. If you recall, we discussed it a while back, and we said that the primary place where that is discussed is in the Gemara in Samach Aleph and Aleph, 61a. And so here we are, 61a. The Gemara itself doesn't discuss the esoterics and the properties and why and how it works, but it discusses how do you decide if it is considered a working kameya, a kameya that has the presumption of effectiveness, and that presumption influences if and how it can be worn on Shabbos. So sit back, relax, and we'll start today. I suppose we'll continue this discussion tomorrow. So here we go. Our Mishnah continues and says, you're not allowed to wear outside on Shabbos. You're not allowed to wear an amulet if it is not coming from an expert. You shouldn't buy a knockoff kameya made in China. Make sure it's handmade by an expert Kabbalist in Israel. Okay, no, but what really is a mumcha? What is an expert? So let's see. Expert businessman or expert kameya creator? Let's read this line again. Bisman she'eno min hamumche. It was not purchased from, right? It doesn't come from a mumche, an expert. Rav Papa clarifies, and we'll see Rashi in a moment. Lo tema ad de mumche gavra umumche kameya. We're not going to be so demanding that the amulet must come from an expert writer and also be a proven amulet, Again, how it's proven, we'll see in a moment. Elokivan de Mumcha Gabra, being that the author, the guy who made it, is renowned in his field and is known to create and proven to create effective amulets. Even if he's giving you a brand new amulet that's never been tried, it hasn't gone through field testing. This one, you could still wear it, being that it was created by an expert kameya maker. Excuse me.
How is that allowed? Is not being part of the thing about not doing magic?
Because it's not magic. I mean, I know we might use the word very magic to describe any kind of mystical, mysterious, invisible, energy-related thing, but in the Torah, at least at the Gemara, as it stands in the Gemara, there's a distinction between a person using legitimate, I don't know, invisible, mystical, mysterious healings and a healing that comes from Avodah Zarah or denies Hashem's involvement. Now, you're really asking a good question. You're asking a good question. It's a big and long and deep question, and there's more questions, which I came across recently. I have to remember where I saw it. There's a discussion about some kameyas talk about angels. What should be a Jew's relationship with angels? Generally, we don't have a relationship with angels. We have a relationship with God. If God chooses to communicate his word through angels, or if God chooses to do his business through angels, that's not our business. We'll let Hashem do it however he wants. But generally speaking, Jews try to go straight to the source. And so what do we make of this scarce but not non-existent reference to angels in Jewish liturgy and in Jewish practice? I'm not here to give you an answer now. I'm just here to tease and acknowledge your question. So for example, there is a prayer in Selichot. Let's see if I can remember it. That says, Malachei Rachamim, Misharsei Elyon, angels of mercy, who serve on high. And then we ask them to appear before God or to appeal before God. And the question is, do you say that kind of language? And there are those who don't. I believe the Chassam Sofer, among others, justified and explained that it is acceptable. But again, I don't have all the citation in front of me. I am just sharing with you that it's a big subject, so I don't want to. It's a good question. Mark, your question is good, but there's even bigger questions. So how an amulet works, beyond my pay grade. I've never worn an amulet. I've never advised someone to wear an amulet, but I certainly don't have the right to tell someone not to wear an amulet either. But certainly it is clear and true that in the time of the Gemara, in the time of the Shas, and till this day, there are great tzaddikim, great mikubalim that create these kameyas or that use old kameyas with great results. So I'm certainly not the one here to tell you that they are good or bad. I'm not qualified enough to weigh in on the intricacies. Suffice it to say, our Gemara here is telling us that a person may wear a kameya, even out in public, so long as it is a verified kameya. How do you become a verified kameya? Rav Papa says, it's not that the kameya needs to have been used 3 times, but it is that the writer has to be an established and verified kameya user. I think I shared last time we spoke about kameyas that there's a person who lives in the area who inherited a very large collection of Judaic items, which are alleged to have been associated with different great pre-war tzaddikim. The general consensus is that a lot of what he claims is a Baba Maisa. This is based on many, many different experts in reviewing this collection. However, there are some items that I think have been given a little bit of a greater degree of credibility and acceptance. And I've told you one of them is an amulet, a kameya, that was actually borrowed, according to them at least, by Rebbitzin Youngrice when her husband was ill. I mentioned it, right?
Yeah.
So did I show you the picture of it then? I think I did.
Maybe. I remember.
Maybe tomorrow I'll try to get it up on the screen again. But anyways, here we go. Loi b'kameya, no, Rashi. Dimumcha kameya or dimumcha gabra or mumcha kameya. We're not saying that it needs to be both a professional writer and a professional or proven record of success as the amulet. Sha'asa Adam, what we're saying is Sha'asa Adam zeh kamei azu legimel anashim. That the kamei maker made this kind of kamei for 3 people. The nasa Adam zeh mumcha sherit begimel anashim. When a person allowed or caused 3 people to become healed through their kameyas, he becomes a expert kameya maker. Kameya mumcha sheripa, and I'm sorry, kameya mumcha. What would it mean that the kameya is verified? Sheripa ksav zeh gimel anashim. This item, this kameya itself, brought 3 people to well-being, to wellness, and they were healed. Inami, alternatively, shekasav adam zeh gimel mine kameyim. Or maybe the person made 3 different kinds of kameyas for 3 different kinds of illnesses. Legimel anashim, to 3 different people. Hainu ismachi gaber b'chol kameyas sheyasa la'olam u'mumche kameyas shenasa legimel anashim b'chazeh ben shekasa reif hazeh ben shekasa reif acher nasa kamey mucha. Basically, there's 2 things. There's the credibility of the writer, and there's the credibility of the actual kameya. And Rav Papa is negating that you don't need to have. This kameya does not have to have healed 3 people. It has to come from a good source. So long as the guy made 3 effective kameyas, even if this kameya has never been proven, it was never used before, it's fresh out of the package, it is still considered acceptable for the purposes of the laws of Shabbos. Why? I believe I recall seeing the explanation, and we'll see it as some more, is that if it is proven to work, the owner is going to take it very seriously. And the owner is going to keep it on him the entire time. He's not going to want to have it fall off because it's bringing a lot of healing properties to his illness. But if it's a made in China kameh the guy's wearing, he doesn't really take it seriously. He'll take it off, he'll play with it, he'll fidget with it, and then he'll end up carrying it on Shabbos. I believe that is an explanation. Reb Beryl, yes.
The more authentic it is, the more there's the danger if it falls, he'll pick it up.
The issue isn't picking up if it falls. The issue is him taking it off. You are correct. If it's actually a good kameya,
the Chinese one, we'd say like the clay. Nobody's going to bother picking it up.
Yeah, except for the way, if I understand correctly, either way you're going to pick it up. But the question is if you're going to fidget with it. And the less you take it seriously, the more likely it is that you'll take it off. The more you take it seriously, so that is that. Let's see the Gemara a little further. Dekanami diktani. Read our Mishnah again, and it actually makes sense and reflects the opinion of Rav Papa. It says, "V'loy b'kameya bizman she'enoi min ha'mumche." It says the amulet cannot be worn if it isn't from a mumche. It doesn't say bizman she'enoi mumche when it is not tested. It just says if it doesn't come from an expert. Shma mina, this is pretty good proof. Rashi, min ha'mumche mashma mi'ada mumche indicates that it's coming from a person who is an expert. V'loy ketani bizman she'enoi mumche deleheve mashma the kaped ha'mumche kamei atzmai. The kaped ha'mumche kamei atzmai kamei ein elish lashon kesher. Okay, interesting. What is the etymology of the word kameya? So Rashi says the word kameya comes from the word kesher, from a knot, and therefore there are 2 kinds of kameyas. There are kameyas that are text-based, some kind of little writing, and there are kameyas that are different kinds of herbs and spices with certain kind of healing, supernatural or homeopathic properties. And for the purposes of our Gemara, Rashi seems to indicate it could be either a writing kind of kameya or an herbal kind of kameya. And that is that. Rabbi Steinsaltz, let me see if I can share this with you. I know I just lost the screen. Hang on one second. trying to get you all a picture. Thank you all for your patience.
Rabbi, you use the word "you all" a lot. You're a Southern boy from South Florida, so I understand it.
I suppose I am. Hold on, here it is. I think this is it. No, it is not. All righty. Is that also Southern?
No. All lefty is
So here we go. This is what Rabbi Steinsaltz shows as a leather pouch that was used to hold an amulet or herbs. I don't know if this is an archaeological find. I have a feeling it is not, based on the fact that there's a lot of organic matter that seems intact, but I don't know. But anyways, he understands that it was tied in this pouch, and that's why it's called kameya. You know what? Maybe we're going to pause here just because the next Gemara starts getting into the formula of what makes a kameya a proven and a writer proven, and I think it's a little bit of an elaborate discussion that we'll start tomorrow. So why don't we run through today's Gemara really fast? Today we had primarily two matters of two items that we discussed. We talked about, well, we gave a recap on the right versus left, and we gave a little bit of the mystical, Kabbalistic, Hasidic perspective that says that you gotta always give dominance to the right side, which represents Chesed, and you could always have the Kavanah that Chesed is the reigning kindness. Olam Chesed Yibana, the world exists with Chesed, and Hashem always seeks to prioritize Chesed over Gevura, and that was the reason why many people wear their clothing in such a manner. Then we went on to talk all about tefillin. Our Mishnah says you shouldn't wear tefillin, and we had the opportunity to take a peek at the Gemara in Eruvin, which talks about a machlokes, if you're allowed to wear tefillin, if you're meant to wear tefillin on Shabbos or not. This came to a surprise as all of us. We know we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos, but ultimately there's the opinion the Gemara presents of Rabbi Akiva, which seems to say that you should or could wear tefillin on Shabbos. But even if you hold you can, and even if you hold you can't wear tefillin on Shabbos, everybody agrees you shouldn't wear the tefillin outside, lest you come to carry it. And Rashi explains very simply, it's very probable that you're going to take your tefillin off, because when you go to the restroom, you're not supposed to wear your tefillin inside. So you're going to take it off, and maybe you'll take it off, and when you go pick it up after the bathroom, you'll forget and carry it. So therefore, the Chazal, the Chachamim, say don't wear the tefillin at all. There was an alternate reading of the teaching of Rav Safra, which applies to the fact that although there are those that say you're not allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos, even they would agree that it is not a biblical transgression, being that it is derech malbush avida. It's being worn in a garment-like way. That's if you don't end up carrying it. If you carry it, obviously that's biblical. But to wear tefillin as you wear tefillin, that is ultimately not a problem. We then introduced our discussion of the kameh, of the amulet, and we were exposed to the prospect that there are two items that you might want to consider about your kameya. Is the author of verified kameya manufacturer? That's one very important item to consider. But then, even if the guy has a lot of success in kameyas, is this given kameya he's handing you ever been effective? And although there is an instinct to say that not only do you want the author to be a verified kameya person, you'd also like his actual, you'd actually want his product to be a mumcha. Ultimately, Rav Papa says it's enough that it comes from an expert that you'd be allowed to wear it on Shabbos. Tomorrow, Be'ezer Hashem, we're going to continue talking all about how many times and how a person establishes a track record, and maybe we'll peek in some of the halachic works that codify this for further elaboration. That concludes the presentation of today's Gemara. Dr. Pasternak.
Yes.
First of all, it's so good to have you on. Were you saying something about the Gemara? I just want to make sure we didn't miss your comments.
No.
Okay. Well, it's wonderful to have you on. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for being here.
Was Sean Bear having a class?
Yes, Sean Bar Chumash today. Yeah. In 1 minute, when we end this class, Everyone is invited to please join.
Before you go, what's the weather situation?
Hold on, let me just say the announcement, and then we'll discuss the weather situation.
Indeed.
Again, immediately after we finish our Gemara, everyone is and the link. Everyone is invited to jump back on to study Chumash with Rabbi Shalom Ber. Now, Baruch Hashem, I think we would describe what we're experiencing as having dodged a bullet. It is a little rainy, and there is some wind, but this is not the kind of wind and rain that gets insurance adjusters excited and gets us nervous. This is a little bit more like typical rain and typical wind. So I think South Florida, Baruch Hashem, dodged a bullet. I will remind everyone that it's just the beginning of the hurricane season, so we can't become too complacent. But the Ezer Hashem, the odds are we're usually pretty lucky. And so Hashem should protect us and bless us to continue having that mazel. And everyone should be safe and sound and blessed. Wish everyone a wonderful day.
Maybe we should have an amulet against hurricanes.
I'm not sure how that works. But I'll speak to our expert.
We have to find a mumcha.
That's it. For the right price, everything's available.
Shekoyach, thank you.
All right, Zai Gebench, thank you all. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.
Shkach.
See you.
You.
Nice.